Romans 4. There's a lot here about Abraham and circumcision. This is not really going to apply to us that much. Well, it does, but in a very indirect way. And I'm not going to talk a lot about circumcision for the next few minutes. And I don't suggest you guys talk about circumcision for the next 30 minutes. But let me just say this, though, since there's so much circumcision talk here. Paul is talking about circumcision because he's talking to the Jewish Christians in Rome. And they are fixated on circumcision. It's part of their identity, it is the symbol of their identity. And they're trying to convince the Gentile Christians that they must become circumcised. It's like the Jewish Christians are saying that my circumcision saves me, or that circumcision is something one must do in order to be saved. It's very important to them. What Paul is saying here is that you are saved by faith. You are not saved by following the law. Now, it's good to follow the law, but following the law is not what saves you. And circumcision is just symbolic of all the law. So you're not saved by circumcision, and you're not saved by meticulously following all the laws. You're saved as a free gift of God. Now, let me offer an example that's much closer to home. I have two daughters. I love my daughters, and generally speaking, they are good and sweet to me. And I love the fact that they are good and sweet. I have a deep appreciation for their goodness and sweetness. But their goodness and sweetness does not cause me to love them. You know what a vending machine, you know what vending machines are. If you put quarters into them and press a button, you will get a can of soda. The quarters are the cause of the machine popping out a can of soda. But it's not that way with my love for my daughters. Their goodness and sweetness does not cause or compel me to love them the way the quarters cause a machine to pop out a soda. Rather, I just love them, period. But I really appreciate their goodness and sweetness. Okay, let's move on. I want to focus on one verse in this chapter, Romans 4:4. Now read it right now. Now, to the one who works, wages are not credit as a gift, but an obligation, period. You can read before and after that, but that's a verse I really want to focus in on. The idea that if you work, your employer pays you as an obligation. Not because they like you, not because they want to, but they have to. It's a compulsion. They have no choice but to pay you if you work for your employer. And that's what works are. That's not what grace is. That's not what a gift is. Let's just say hypothetically, you could follow all the laws of God well enough that you could earn salvation, God's approval, and God's love. Now, you can't, of course. No one can. But for the sake of argument, let's just imagine you could. Okay? On the other hand, imagine the Christian way, the gospel way. You cannot work or be good enough to earn or merit God's salvation or his approval or his love. You just can't earn it. You can never achieve it. So instead, this is a gospel. God will give it to you. No strings attached. You can't make him give it to you. You can't earn it. He just gives it to you. Okay? So the law and the gospel, the law and grace. So here's a question. If hypothetically both were an option, I could earn salvation by law or I can earn salvation by grace. Which one would you take? Hypothetically, can't really do the law way, but hypothetically, which one would you prefer? Again, option one, you live a sinless life. And as a result, God must give you love, salvation, and approval as an obligation. God is obligated to give this to you. You force his hand by your goodness. Option two, you will fail morally. You sin, no matter how hard you try. And in response, God has compassion and pity and love for you. So he just gives you the gift of life, love, and salvation. And you did nothing to earn it. I mean, look, we know what the right answer is. We've been going to church our whole lives. Grace and mercy and gospel of God. Okay? I know that's the way, that's the answer. That's the right answer, of course. But I really think deep down inside, we would prefer option one, if that was a possibility. I want to live a perfect life and obligate God, force him to give me love and salvation. And he has no other choice but to give me love and give me salvation. No one says that, but I wonder if deep down inside there's a big appeal to option one. I think the appeal of option one is that I can brag, I can boast. Maybe not publicly, but at least privately, I can brag and boast myself that I can get credit for it. I can tell myself I'm not God's charity case. In fact, I earned it. because I'm awesome. I'm like an A plus guy. And God's love and salvation is rightfully mine. God is obligated by force of my personal awesomeness to give me salvation and love. Option two, the gospel, is a path of grace and mercy. And in this option, I am the charity case. I am completely dependent on the mercy and kindness of God. And I don't get to boast, brag, or get credit for anything. I don't want to earn it. I don't have to think that I'm so good I got it. In fact, I need to be humble. I need to admit I'm wrong. I can never take any credit for it. If I take credit for it, I've negated the gospel completely. I cannot be self righteous. Self righteous is the opposite of the gospel. Option two is the right way. In fact, it's the only option. But actually, it's kind of a hard option because your ego has to die. You need to admit that you're not capable. So here's a theory I have. It's just a theory. Maybe I'm wrong. I think when we're first Christians, we know we're saved by grace and God's mercy. That's the gospel message we hear that makes us cry, that touches our heart, and we can finally admit how bad we are. God loves us anyway. But then time after some time, we get sanctified, we pick up some good habits, we start cleaning up our lives. I think after some time, we keep edging and sneaking towards option one, the way of the law, the way of merit. After years and years of being a Christian, we start believing, maybe subconsciously, that we earned it, or that we're so good that God owes us something. I'm so good, God is obligated to love me. I've earned it. Why do we begin with grace and gradually edge towards merit? Well, because I think it feels good to think that you're in control, or that something good is in you, or that you're a pretty good person. You're not a wretch. I think we begin with the gospel, but I think we're actually tempted. There's always a temptation to go towards the law, or believe and delude ourselves into thinking that we're saved by the law. I want to shift gears and really, really go off on a limb. And the limb I'm going off on is actually going to get really personal for me here. Like you, I was raised in a Korean home. And for me, being Korean meant at least two things. My parents and I did not talk much, barely. When we did talk, though, it was always about my academic achievement. It was very clear to me my dad had a job, my mom had a job, and I had one job: get high grades, or rather, that meant get A's, only A's. Now, technically, I knew my parents loved me. I knew that. However, I also had the sinking feeling that I had to earn their love and approval with A's. No one ever said it, but I think I really felt it deep down inside. And I think this is a very typical sort of Korean childhood, that you have to study all the time, and your goal in life is to earn A's to get to a great college. And so I got a lot of A's. And I felt like, again, it wasn't explicitly clear, but I look back at my life and I felt like I was buying their love and respect with my A's. Kind of like working at a job. You make 15 bucks an hour, you work for an hour, you get 15 bucks. I got A's, I got their love and approval. On the one hand, it felt good because I was getting A's. It was mine, and I could boast. And I felt like I was obligating them to love me and approve of me. I kind of like made them love me with my A's. They owed me. On the other hand, I was always one B plus away from losing my position in their eyes. I've wondered over the years how this affects my relationship with God. Look, I know I'm saved by grace and the unconditional love of God. But does some part of me think that I have to earn God's love and approval by being good, the same way I relate to my own parents? I think this is distortion, and I wonder. I think it's kind of true. I think in some ways my childhood background in some ways distorts or disrupts or blurs my relationship with God the way it should be. That I have to buy God's love with the works I do. I'm really going off on an even thinner limb now. That's even more personal, perhaps. I just want to think through this now. I wonder if some of us think that we need to achieve some great things. We need to accumulate a series of accomplishments to make ourselves worthy to ourselves. In order for you to love yourself, accept yourself, do you have to achieve certain things? Well, that's a very hard and heavy way to live. It's also unnecessary. Jesus says, "My yoke is easy and my burden is light." So let me end with this: God loves you. Do you trust him, or would you rather trust and rely on your own ability to buy and earn God's love?